Well, welcome everybody. We're really happy to have you back this fall for our kickoff of our fall programming for the Mount Vernon and Lee Chamber Senior Resources Council. I'm Jan Buchanan. I'm the committee chair and chief cheerleader in keeping us excited and enthusiastic about working together and really building and rebuilding this important committee for the chamber, localizing the professionals, you all, who are serving seniors in our geography and learning from each other, and bringing in topics of interest. And we started back in, gosh, I can't remember whether it was May or June. I think it was May. And we've kind of started with a broad picture from county perspectives. There's so many professionals in the neighborhood community services, the area agency on aging. I'm trying to remember the third person we had in speaking. It'll come to me in a minute, but we're excited to bring in Jim Lindsay, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. But as usual, what I'd like to do is not talk too much, and second, introduce and let everybody introduce themselves to go around the table, if you will, and go around the room. And just give us a 30-second to 1 minute brief introduction of yourself, and maybe something that could be impacting you right now or something you want to share with the group. So I'm gonna call on people based on where I'm seeing. So I'm gonna call Paul Dean up first to say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Jan. My name is Paul Dean. I'm fairly new to the chamber and new to this group, so I'm very happy to be here. I'm an attorney. My practice focuses on estate planning and estate administration, and also small business general counsel. So I'm particularly interested in issues impacting estate planning, power of attorneys, medical directives, and things like that for senior citizens. So happy to be here and learn more about the group and hopefully be an active member going forward.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. And there's our buddy, Betty. Betty, why don't you go next?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Betty Samuel with Capital Caring Health, providers of advanced illness care. I've been with the organization for about 14 years, and a special love of working in the Mount Vernon, Alexandria area, which we certainly have a great need and quite a high population of those who could benefit from the care of senior organizations such as the Chamber, such as Mount Vernon at Home, home health care companies, hospices, and beyond. So thank you for this opportunity. Betty Samuel, Capital Caring Health.
Thanks, Betty. Jim's reminding me of putting something up in the chat that we can certainly use the chat if we want to give some detail. You know, we don't have that luxury of passing cards back and forth, so this is a way to do that. Let's go to Claire. She's coming from my team. I just brought her in as a consultant contractor to work with us on some membership and marketing. So Claire, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Mountfort, and I get to work with Jan, and I'm very delighted to be joining this. I have a background in marketing and communications, and I have a heart for seniors. I have a 94-year-old mother who desires only one thing, and that is to stay in her home, jump on her trampoline, and continue to live fully independent.
She's 94 and jumps on a trampoline?
Yes, and she doesn't even need the guardrails.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, my grandmother lived to 103, so it's just a long line of,
Wow.
But anyway, I love this topic and I love working with Jan, and I hope to be supportive to all she's doing and all that you are doing.
It's wonderful. Thanks, Claire. Mandy, let's head over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see everybody today. My name is Mandy Brooks. I'm the Executive Director here at Paul Spring Retirement Community. I have been at Paul Spring for a little over a year now, coming up on a year and a half. And prior to that, I was with our other sister community, Arundel and Springfield. So I'm the Executive Director here. I've actually worked in senior living my entire life. So I started when I was 15 years old. So the seniors are very near and dear to my heart, and we're very happy to partner with you all and be a part of the Chamber of Commerce.
That's great, Mindy. Thank you. And like a lot of us, there's a real hard place in coming into this profession, isn't there? Bella, go ahead.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bella Desai. I'm the owner of Senior Helpers here in Mount Vernon. And we provide great care for seniors like Claire's mom, helping them to stay as independent as possible, and really focusing on those quality of life aspects outside of I'm sure everybody knows the typical ADLs and IADLs. So I've put my contact information up. A lot of what I tell other people is if you see something, say something, especially in regards to if you have neighbors that are seniors or anything like that. It's always better, and I'm sure Jim agrees, it's always better to start that conversation earlier rather than later. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bella.
Thank you for having me. Lisa Seward Group, TTR Sotheby's International Realty. We too love our seniors and love helping them transition if they need to leave their home. I am also very involved with Mount Vernon at Home, so also a big fan of them doing what they like. I also have a very elderly mom who's so far doing awesome. And it's always a very tough transition to move, but especially I think for seniors. And we pride ourselves on concierge real estate service at every price point. So literally, we just did this for a senior who recently relocated to a retirement community. They hand us the keys and we do everything from estate sale all the way to home sale prep. And it's currently on the market. I've been in Alexandria since 1987. So it's been a minute, very, very familiar with this area. And we are also very community and nonprofit driven and feel it is our joy and our obligation to give back to the nonprofits in our community.
Thanks, Lisa. It's wonderful. Dina, go ahead.
Get unmuted here, and forgive me, I don't have a camera on my computer, so I'm using my little iPhone. I'm Dina Imbrilli. I'm a community liaison here at Home Instead, the Annandale office, which covers all of Mount Vernon and a lot of Alexandria, as well as Fairfax and whatnot. We also are home care, handling personal care, companion care. We're the ones that come in and do all that stuff that nobody at any age wants to do, along with the ADLs. And personally, I was raised by my grandmother, and I had the honor and privilege of having my own mom live with us for 26 years to the age of 93 and never had to leave the home. I'm passionate for seniors, and I am been in the business about 8 years. And Jan, Betty, Holly, I mean, just so many of you, I thank you. Holly in particular, I would be remiss not to thank you for your incredible sensitivity and kindness. Well, Betty, all of you out there, for our beloved Ken Wood, I thank you. We will honor him every day and his joyous spirit.
Dina, that's really sweet. Yeah, you lost your founder and a pillar of the community in the last year or so. So thank you for that.
His heart and soul live on through us.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think if it's Natasha. I can't remember your first name. I've got N up there. But come on.
There we go. Yeah, it's Natasha. I'm with Brandywine living here at Alexandria. We are an independent assisted and memory care community in Weston, Alexandria. I've been with Brandywine now for just shy of about a year. Overall, been in the senior care industry, ranging from rehab assisted and just general sales now for going on 8 years. And hello.
Thanks, Natasha. Good to see you.
Good to see you. As you can
Yeah.
tell, I'm still a little stuffy, but I feel good. So I'm glad
Oh,
to be
shoot.
back.
Is it allergies or you were just sick?
I got hit with the bug, but vaccinations are good. So
Yeah, I had experienced it too. I got the breakthrough as well. It was,
yeah.
but I'm back up. Anyway, we're glad to have Diane here. Diane is a pillar of our community as well. All volunteer all the time, this one, and she's everywhere. So we're lucky to have her and draw from her resource. Diane, go ahead.
The kind words, Jan. Thank you so much. They make me shy. I'm
No.
Diane Watson, the contact person for the Spring Hill Community Village. It's a distinction of being an all-volunteer village in Fairfax County. And I'm the Mount Vernon representative on the Fairfax Commission on Aging. And big thing these days is with the Northern Virginia Aging Network. As many of you know, the governor last month set forth a proclamation elevating aging services. So now many are working to try to identify what services are going to be needing as we age now and in the future. So I'm curious to hear what everybody has to say. Thank you.
Diane's a good resource. We may want to be tapping her as a potential speaker to talk about the dementia-friendly initiative as a community. I think it might be appropriate. I was just thinking about that, Diane. So, and she is a liaison in the Fairfax Commission on Aging and for our district. So another reason to be able to reach out and have Diane be part of our conversation. So thanks, Diane.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. Elizabeth, go ahead. I see you're in the car. If you can unmute without, please don't hit anything.
Yes, I'm sorry. On the Dulles Toll Road right now. Sorry I hopped on a little bit late. I believe we're doing just some introductions here. I'm Elizabeth Mako with Capital City Nurses. We just rebranded our Northern Virginia offices in June. We used to go by Ready Hands in Alexandria and Allegiance in the Sterling area. So just kind of spreading the news that it's still us. We just expanded and unified the whole DMV region to go by one name. Personally, I've been the liaison for Capital City Nurses in the Alexandria area and beyond for almost 3 years now. We provide private duty caregivers and private duty nurses to those who like to, or to those wherever somebody calls home. And I am a recent advisory board member of the Parkinson's Foundation for the Mid-Atlantic chapter. So working with seniors is near and dear to my heart.
Good. Thank you, Elizabeth. I hope everybody was able to hear. She's with Capital City Nurses. So it's going to be home health, isn't it? It's nursing care. Let's go to Daniel. I see you there.
Great afternoon, everybody. Daniel Sanders here with For Sales, the DC area's largest professional estate sales, auctions, and personal property appraisals company. Actually, really pleased to see Paul Dean on this call. He gave me in the past 2 of my favorite sales ever. One was the Charlotte Sandy estate, was a penthouse condo in River Place, that red brick monstrosity next to the Iwo Jima that looks out over the mall from Arlington. It was a penthouse 3-bedroom apartment. It was something else. Coin collection, stamp collection, fabulous jewelry, designer lucite furniture. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Picasso pottery pieces in that sale. It was quite something else. And the other was the Clifton estate. Paul, do you remember that one?
So I have to come clean. So
Yeah.
there's another Paul Dean who's an estate planning.
Oh, really?
attorney,
Okay.
And,
Well, then I take it all back.
He's since retired. I have actually gotten a few business leads from him though, because
Okay.
people have called and just seen my
Well,
name.
the other Paul Dean provided me a $60,000 JFK signed JFK collectibles auction that we sold up in Philadelphia. That was pretty impressive. So my thanks to you and your doppelganger.
Hope is that maybe this Paul Dean will provide some.
Anyway, we
Thanks,
run
Daniel.
estate sales, auctions, do tangible personal property appraisals, and we've been in business for 49 years at this point. So we are just heading into our 50th year of continuous operation. Daniel
Great.
Sanders with For Sales.
Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. Who am I missing? I think I've got Alex Kramer coming in. She's got to meet her recently and got to see her in person recently. New addition to Supervisor Stork's office. So we've got a leg in our local politics and representatives. So Alex is here. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Holly and Jan, it's good to see you again. Yes, my name is Alex. I started with Supervisor Stork's office in February, and I'm in charge of Health and Human Services. I'm the nonprofit liaison, and I also handle housing. Supervisor Stork says that our seniors in Mount Vernon are a priority, and that's why I'm here. I've met with Jan about this already, and we're just interested in supporting wherever we can. We have a senior safety summit coming up on October 1st. So if anyone is interested, it's a virtual event. I have the flyer ready. So if you'd like the flyer, please shoot me an email or just say something in the chat and I'll send it to you. All right. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Alex. Great. Thank you. And Lauren, here you are. Lauren from Sunrise.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lauren Wester with Sunrise Senior Living. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. I've been with Sunrise for almost 7 years now in several different roles, but currently supporting all of our communities in Northern Virginia. And my job is to connect with people like yourselves to provide resources to both our current residents living in our community as well as future residents of our community or just senior living in general. So Sunrise's mission is to champion the quality of life for all seniors, and that doesn't just include the ones living in our community. It's all seniors in Northern Virginia. So thank you so much for having me today, and it's good to see you, Jan and Holly.
Thanks, Lauren. And I'll just give a little shout out to my little corner of the world. So I'm the director of Mount Vernon at Home, and we are a nonprofit membership-based organization that supports seniors. And from 55 up, so I'm a senior, come on, aging in their homes and thriving in their communities in the Mount Vernon area. We cover a wide swath. I love this, we have represented in this group here, I think the entire continuum of care right here in this room, which is really energizing for me. I am a pivot for my membership. We've got 142 members of various age ranges and abilities who may from time to time need your services. And for you guys to be good referral partners for us too, in bringing people into connection and support and community. We're keeping them thriving. We're keeping them active on Zoom. We may be starting back with a couple of outdoor in-person events, which we did this summer before the variant. But we work with referral partners. I've worked with, right now, probably almost all of you. Look forward to enhancing those relationships. And this is such a big part of why we're here. So as I segue now into introducing Jim, we've just been blessed to have Jim on our board of directors for many years at Mount Vernon at Home, and he just rolled off in the last year. I got a chance to work with him in my tenure of being here all of about a year and a half. But I've known Jim. I don't come from a senior care background. I come from a nonprofit management background, but I had the pleasure to hear Jim speak. It's probably been almost 10 years ago. And just the passion that he has of coming into managing, owning, growing a large home care organization, ACC Family, and all that he's done to be embedded in the Alexandria community as a citizen, like Lisa and many others who are here. They work here, they grow their families here and they expand their footprint here. Jim wears a lot of hats. He has also been an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. He helps in their leadership programs. He's done a lot of training in that regard. I had to put a little caveat because I have never heard of the Lean Six Sigma program. Maybe some of you had that. I thought maybe it was like karate or something, but it's maybe karate leadership, something like that. It sounded a little scary, but he's not scary. He's wonderful. He's read all those books that are sitting behind him and all that literature. But we're very lucky to have Jim, you know, and he'll talk a little bit more about his connections in the political world. He's talked to some of our political leaders who are very busy right now in setting up the legislative agendas. But Jim's going to give us a rundown and an overview, kind of pull us all together around what's going on the horizon and some of the local and regional and national political scene concerning our businesses surrounding the care of seniors. So Jim, without any further ado, and I know you'll fill in the gaps that I might have missed, but I also want to thank everybody. Holly, you know, she didn't get a chance to say who she is, but she is running the show here with the chamber, and we all know Holly and love Holly. So thank you, Holly, for platforming this and allowing us to all engage together. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Jim Lindsay and thank you all again for your wonderful introductions and connections.
Well, thank you guys for having me come. I've been sort of floating in and out of the group as my schedule will allow. So I'm very grateful that I get to be a part. And of course, I think I know almost everybody in the group. I don't know Mandy very well or at all, actually. And Diane, we may have crossed paths a couple times. And then Natalie, I've yet to get to know you, but I think I'm going to be over at Brandywine next week at the event. So, so at any rate, we are really grateful to be a part. I'm not nearly as experienced as Daniel Sanders, who's been doing this for almost 50 years. Dang. And Daniel does not look like he's been doing it that long, and he has the energy of an Energizer bunny. So I'm hoping to follow in his footsteps. We've been doing home care in Alexandria for 27 years. And so we're just coming up on our 30th in a couple of years, but not 50. So, and Jan and I, we had the honor, I've been on the board with Jan and I've been on the board with Holly. And so really, really appreciate you guys' leadership and your spirit, which is phenomenal. And got asked to give a legislative update, which I will know portions and you will know portions that I don't know. So I'm not trying to position myself as an expert by any stretch, but part of my task with Jan when we start talking is I wanted to get with some of the legislators locally and just see what's happening on the state level, the federal level, et cetera. So I'm glad that most of us have our cameras on, because what I'm wanting to do is, as I go through this, watch your eyes. And when your eyes glaze over, I'm going to try to switch topics, because this is just crazy. I mean, I did a bunch of my work yesterday, and then this morning I updated it. So I'm going to just fairly go through from top down. So I'll start with federal, and then we'll go to state. And then certainly Alex will know more locally than I do. And Holly knows more than all of us. Holly's forgotten more than we'll ever know about all this stuff. But at any rate, I'll just go over the stuff that I have. Some of it is related to seniors. Some is related to small business. And because of that, there's lots of intersections that we all serve. Two things that I'm involved in that give me some insight. One is Diane, you're the commissioner on the Fairfax County Commission on Aging, and I'm a commissioner on the Alexandria Commission on Aging. So we both are going to be crossing all sorts of information there. So I'm pretty informed with the city, not as informed as the Fairfax County. And I'm also on the leadership council of the National Association of Small Business. And so I'm a part of their lobbying team, and that puts me in touch with some regulatory type stuff. So with all that being said, let me just start with the federal. And again, it's almost easier to ask questions because there's so much data, but I'll go through this stuff in sort of an overview mode, and then you can ask questions. First of all, OSHA. on the federal level, OSHA is changing everything. And President Biden has instructed OSHA before they were already changing lots of things. And then President Biden asked them to change yet another thing. So just going over OSHA very briefly, the big deal is that last week, Biden announced that he was going to instruct OSHA to put the mandate into private businesses. And two aspects of that. One is that any business that's over 100 employees is going to be under this mandate. Ironically, they are proposing up to $14,000 per fine, $14,000 of fines per violation when it gets there. So that's pretty expensive. But I was reminded by one of my political contacts that it's not OSHA changing the rules. President Biden has instructed OSHA to start the rulemaking process to changing the rules. So the rules are still much up in the air. So if you go to the OSHA's website, you'll see that they make all sorts of recommendations and they're working on the rules. And so all of us that are familiar with any legislative function or bureaucratic function, you have to make the rule, then you have to do public comment, then you have to get public comments, then you have to do a bunch of stuff. It takes a long time. And I can't imagine that OSHA is going to really be able to go as fast as they would like to, or certainly as fast as President Biden would like, just because of the bureaucratic nature of it. But here's what they're looking for, is that he wants businesses over 100 to be penalized if they don't mandate the vaccine. And the testing option, just generally mandates are falling into three categories. One is you have 100% mandate, no testing option. The second one is you have a mandate, but you have a testing option, a weekly testing option that could let people stay involved. And then underneath that is a religious exemption and a medical exemption. So right now, the OSHA, starting from the federal side, OSHA has said they're going to retain the testing function and religious exemption and the medical exemption. So that's sort of where it's going. So the scuttlebutt before President Biden started speaking was that he was going to eliminate all those. But if you look at the text of President Biden's speech and OSHA's website, et cetera, they're going to retain the testing as an option for private businesses. So all of us that are small businesses, this is what they say is coming for larger businesses and probably will filter down to us. One is that you probably have to mandate the vaccine. You'll have to provide vacation time for people to go get the vaccine. You'll have to provide sick time for anybody that gets sick after taking the vaccine. You'll have to provide the cost of testing. The federal government will make testing available, but will not provide funding for the cost of the individuals getting tested if you keep that in your business. You're going to have to build a compliance system inside your own business to keep track of it. Ironically, we hit this morning, yesterday actually, as I was doing my research, the EEOC says that if you are collecting information for your employees as in regard to their vaccination status, you cannot, hear me out, you cannot put that with their personnel files. That was really interesting to me. So we are starting this morning, because of my research for this talk, you can't put their vaccination status as a part of their employee files. So you have to have a separate filing system for medical stuff, including did you get vaccinated, including do you have a temperature? And if you ask those questions, the answers to those cannot be discoverable by your other employees, and they have to be in a separate system. So our home care system is set up so that we have all this confidential and HIPAA protected and EEOC protected personnel files. And we found out that specifically the medical stuff has to be in a separate file than your personnel file. So who knew? So those of us that have employees, make sure that that's a data point that's buried in the weeds that I didn't know. You're going to have to pay for, let me I'll rewind just a little bit. This is what they're saying we should prepare for from small business, is that provide vacation to get the vaccine, provide sick time in case they get sick, provide the cost of testing, provide a system of compliance, including keeping the records separate, pay for employees who can't make the arrangements to get tests or to get their vaccine for whatever reason, a process for noncompliance, a process for who handles terminations if you're going to terminate because of the mandate, and provide recruiting because you're going to have to replace those people that you terminate. And then the last one, which is contested right now, but just so we are aware, if the federal government mandates that private businesses include a mandate and the mandate goes through, you mandate for your employees that they get tested, and then they have an adverse effect and have lifetime disability, or they die or whatever. From my understanding, the business retains the liability. That'll go in our workers' comp policy. So what happens is if you mandate the vaccine and somebody dies or has a lifetime adverse effect, which those are there, if you look at the CDC website, some 20 or 30,000 people right now have had adverse effects that landed in the hospital, and myocardia, whatever that is, the swelling of the heart. All of those things are going to be covered if it goes to your private business. The business retains the liability for paying for that. So there's some really interesting pain points for this mandated vaccine policy that the OSHA is bringing in. So I know that should generate questions right there. So keep track of your questions, and I'll just keep going over this stuff. And then we'll come back and answer questions because I'm going so fast. The other thing that you need to know is that it's not just OSHA that's doing this vaccination world. It's OSHA, the EEOC, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, the Rehabilitation Act, which includes all the things on disabilities and non-discrimination, all of that. The Civil Rights Act, which is race, color, sexuality, and includes pregnancy, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, and the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Who knew? So there's like 7 different acts that are coming into this mandated vaccine policy. So I can't imagine how many people are tied up in this, but the bottom line is it's going to hit all of our businesses. So we should all begin to be prepared. There is no way that any of that's going to escape, even if you're a small business. The Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act is called GINA. It prohibits employers from asking employees medical questions about family members. So ironically, I just came over that little data, and I want to put to all of us is if you have an employee, you cannot ask them if they have a family member that has COVID. You can ask them if they have COVID, and you can record their answer, but you cannot ask them if they have a family member that has COVID. So that is a discriminatory action under the GINA, let's see here, Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. So I've just gotten tons of data under all of this stuff, but that's that's just the vaccine mandate coming under the banner of OSHA, but with all those other acts involved. Let's see here. The D variant is surging, and there's a lot of stuff that's headed toward Brandywine and Sunrise in terms of assisted livings and nursing facilities. And the whole looks like a lockdown is probably going to come again, although there's a lot of discussion about that in terms of the senior population having the vaccine and breakthrough cases and whether or not we're headed into another shutdown. Ironically, the Medicaid, Medicare, if you do any Medicaid waivers or Medicare activities, or you're interacting with a hospital, or you're staffing for a hospital, or you're staffing and you get a Medicaid waiver person at Sunrise or Brandywine or any of that, if you touch any Medicaid, Medicare, you fall into the vaccine mandate. And so that means and I don't know about Lauren, where you guys are, and Natalie about with Brandywine, but if you touch anything with Medicaid, Medicare, then that enters your facility under all these rules, and then the whole facility has to comply with all the rules. So you probably already knew that, probably are done with it, but at any rate, that's kind of what's headed with Medicaid and Medicare. Ironically, this is from the national standard, the federal side of the world. Nobody really knows this. I have a friend who sat on the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security board. You know, there's a public board that the president appoints, and then they give an update on how Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security is doing. And then it's in the newspapers, but you and I are sometimes don't see it. But Medicare, this is, to me, it's interesting. Medicare and Medicaid will run out of money in 2026. That's only 5 years from now, 4 years and some months. So if you're doing Medicare waiver, Medicaid, you're covering anything with Medicare, Medicaid, it's going to run, it runs to zero and starts using cash reserves in 5 years. Now, Social Security itself runs out of money in 2034. And so we should expect that, by the way, my friend who's on that board, he just rotated off. He was a senior vice president of this monster big company, and the president, I think President Obama appointed him to the board, and then he served his term and went off. But they are so backed up that they are not producing the reports for the GAO and for Congress. And so the report's due in April for this year, and they are just now getting last year's report done. And so that has not factored in a lot of the COVID material. So the bottom line is that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security could be in a lot worse shape, but we don't know it yet because they haven't produced the report. So a lot of impacts on small business. This year, they're going to give a COLA, a cost of living update for all Medicare recipients. It's the largest COLA since 1983. So a 6.2% increase, cost of living increase in Medicaid, Medicare for 2022. And at the same time, they're giving the largest increase, but they're also running short on cash. So I mention all of that because it's going to hit all of us in terms of, as the government runs out of money, we're going to have to entertain regulatory changes. Now, you probably saw in the news today, this is all federal level again, that the federal debt limit, we're going to run out of cash reserves for the United States next month. So Janet Yellen asked Congress to raise the debt ceiling. The Democrats this morning or yesterday the House pitched that they should suspend the debt ceiling, which means that we can continue to spend as a nation without worrying about a debt ceiling. Janet Yellen, I think, is opposed to that suspension. It's been in suspension. But the Senate and Mitch McConnell has already indicated that they're against the suspension. And so if the government doesn't vote on either suspension or raise the debt ceiling by in less than, I think the vote starts coming up next week, mid-October is when the money runs out. And so it could force the government to shut down depending on how the Democrats and Republicans argue between themselves. So we're a federal city. So that means if the government shuts down, we're going to have in October, maybe temporarily. If you remember, it shut down, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. Everybody, the federal workers got their pay suspended. They got it reinstated later. But that did force a whole bunch of changes in the labor market, which we already have a weird labor market. So that's on a federal level. We've got a lot of things moving on the federal level that are unprecedented, just to say that. And the spending bill that the President Biden sent through Congress it's one of the largest spending bills in the history of the United States. And it doesn't factor in when Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are going to run out of money. So there are a lot of moving parts, all of which will affect us because we are serving federal employees. Some of them are on Medicaid, Medicare. We are all involved in a federal labor market in the DC region. And so all of these federal things are going to impact the clients that we serve, the fundraising money that nonprofits can generate in the next 2 years, and certainly the care that's provided. Couple things, labor shortage, really weird again. Right now, 25 states dropped the unemployment package in June, and the other 25 states dropped them a week and a half ago. And so right now there are no continuing, or at least no proposed continuing unemployment benefits that are keeping people at home. And the Labor Department expected that everybody would come back to work and that we would have this influx of workers, and that has not materialized. So the Labor Department, as of last week, was theorizing, this is their theory, is that people save the money during on unemployment, and they're just kind of living on that savings, or they're afraid of COVID and they don't want to come back, or they don't have a skill set for the new job and their old job's been eliminated, or they just don't like their old job and they're not coming back. But bottom line is we have 10 million job openings and 8 million workers. And so in the US right now, there are 2 million unfilled jobs right now across the nation. And that's just the jobs that the Labor Department tracks. So right now we have an unprecedented labor shortage. And I've been checking with the different folks that I know that are seniors and been involved in politics, and they said they've never seen a labor shortage where we have 2 million open jobs and nobody to fill those jobs. So really different. Ironically, a couple other things. The seniors are retiring faster than expected. So there are folks that are reaching their 64, 62, 64, 65, 67. They are retiring faster than the Labor Department thought they would. So right now, let me see if I can remember, there are 1.7 more people retiring in the second quarter of this year, just the second quarter. So 1.7 more seniors or eligible retirees retired than the Labor Department expected. So almost 2 million in one quarter. So there's a lot of people leaving the labor market at the moment that we need people to come into the labor market. Inflation fears are going up. The inflation was higher, or inflation fears are higher, but not as maybe as bad. And that's an economic interesting thing. Inflation should have been going up for years and hasn't. So now some of the economists, believe it or not, are excited that inflation's going up because finally it's supposed to have gone up like 10 years or 5 years ago and hasn't. So finally the economy is starting to behave like they thought it should, which is a little bit different. Consumer confidence is down and is dropping. So the change in the economy, there's a lot of unsettled people in the economy. The thing that you probably saw this morning internationally is that China's second largest real estate company is announced yesterday that it's going to probably default on its debts, and it will pull down about 20% of China's, 30% of China's entire economy if it goes under. At least that's the fear. And so if you notice, the stocks fell 600 and some points yesterday and opened in the red today and are currently in the red. And that's just a global economic reality. And the background is that China's their percentage of debt to GDP is 270% right now. In other words, they owe 270% more than they're producing. Just to give comparison, the United States is at 108%. So, and that's not totally bad, maybe, as far as having more debt than you have GDP, but 270% is pretty high for a nation. And then when your second largest company goes bankrupt or potentially could go into bankruptcy, that's why everybody's jittery. So now how would that hit all of our businesses? People that are going to be making retirement decisions are going to make them there slower, probably. Although that number about people retiring sooner is an anomaly. They're certainly going, we anticipate that they're going to be much more hesitant to put money into a transition, either housing, assisted living, independent living, or leaving the market. There's just going to be a lot of hesitancy into the fall with COVID, with the mandates, with China, with government, with everything. So it's really an interesting time. Now, believe it or not, I got Scott Surville and we had a beer and talked over all the stuff that he's doing on the state level. So let me tell you what's happening statewide. I've been trying to get hold of George Barker, and believe it or not, George never even got back with me. And I was like, how is that possible? But, and I know George, so it's not like it's, he's ignoring his constituency, but he is tied up in redistricting because the Virginia is redistricting all of its states to redraw all the lines on all of our districts for the election. And so he is totally swamped. He can't, I don't think he's even been home from Richmond. So if you try to get a hold of George, the only thing I know is that he's got a $500 per person thing coming up at a Nats game on the 2nd of October. If you want to talk to George, you got to pay $500. He said Scott said he'll probably be there. He'll bleary-eyed and probably won't want to talk about anything, but he will be there. So I don't know if I want to spend $500 on that or not, but at any rate, I got Scott, and Scott was busy himself. Now Scott's certainly a senator for most of us, but Virginia is in this weird place. So we have in Virginia, we have 18 billion with a B, $18 billion of ARPA funds yet to spend. So even though the federal government's got all these issues that look dire, and they are dire, Virginia is sitting with $18 billion ARPA money to spend, and it's sitting at a $2.3 billion surplus right now. So I was like, you're kidding, Scott. How is that possible? And so he goes, yeah, no, just to give you the ARPA funds, American Relief and Protection Act, I believe the P stands for. So the ARPA funds were given during the COVID pandemic side of the world to the states to prop up the states. And so even though we have $1 billion in funds sitting there yet to be spent, I said, where's that money going to go? Anything for seniors, anything? And he said, right now, this will hit all of us. The unemployment, they've been just dishing out unemployment in Virginia and every other state as well. And a whole bunch of fraud in unemployment. And they are going to allocate about $860 million of that ARPA funds to flood back into the Virginia Unemployment Fund so that you and I don't have to pay for the fraud that's taking place. So thank you for our delegates and our senators. Because that's going to be a mess. I don't know about you guys, but we get 2 to 3 claims, fraudulent claims a week. In that they just said throw it all in. Now I'm dealing with 3 different states. I deal with Colorado, I deal with Maryland, and I deal with Virginia. And our we have nurses that are fully employed, and people were claiming unemployment for our nurses who are fully employed. And they're like, I didn't claim it, I'm working, what the heck? And one of our nurses actually got the card, a debit card with the money already preloaded on it, saying, here's your money for unemployment. She goes, I didn't apply for unemployment. So there is just a ton of clutter that's going on unemployment wise. And thankfully, I don't think we as small businesses will have to deal with as much with that as we thought maybe we might. It also goes to the last mile broadband. So you're going to send a bunch of money to broadband in Southern Virginia. And I don't tell anybody I said this, but I said, Scott, you're talking, none of that's going to go to Nova, right? It's going to go to Rova. And if you're familiar with those terms, it's Northern Virginia is Nova and Rova is the rest of Virginia. And those folks down in Southern Virginia are not very pleased that us Northern Virginians use that term. So, but I said, Scott, carefully, is that a Rova initiative? And he goes, yeah, don't tell them I said that. But yeah, all that money's flowing to the south of Virginia so that they can get broadband down south. And then they're also going to do a consumer utility assistance fund to pay people that have gotten behind on the utilities. So 120 million is going there. So, and then we're sitting on top of, in Virginia, $2.3 billion in surplus. So I said, where's that money going to go? Good grief. And he goes, it goes to a rainy day fund first, and then it goes to a statutory reserve fund that Virginia has. And then if there's money left over, it goes to water improvement. So even though we have a $2.3 billion surplus, he said, probably not going to do, a lot of that's not going to flow back into small business relief. And it'll keep us from paying unemployment. Okay, now I'm looking at your eyes. You look alert and awake, so I'm going to keep going. Um, the other thing on the state level from Virginia standpoint is that outside of what I just said, he goes, nobody is making commitments on anything. McAuliffe and Youngkin are running for governor, and yesterday's poll was that it was going to be a close race. No one's able to give a call on which one that is yet. And Lieutenant Governor is already up. Is also up for grabs, and the Attorney General. And so all the races this year are very close. And so Scott told me that nobody in the legislature is making any commitments other than allocating the surplus money and ARPA money. Nobody's really committed to anything, seniors or otherwise, until they figure out what the leadership is going to do. So Youngkin said his platform is that he's going to come and give a bunch of tax credits, and then that money will go back. So the legislature is sort of putting all that money that they've got right now in surplus in a reserve in case the government, in case the governor changes, and in that case, we may have less money to deal with in terms of surplus because it would come back to tax credits. And then Terry McAuliffe is saying, if I'm saying that his name right, is his platform is spending to bring relief to Virginians. So nobody, he said the legislature literally outside of allocating those surplus funds, nobody's making any commitments. We're all just sitting on our hands until the election. So in terms of the local stuff, not local, because Alex, you'll know more about that, but in terms of state stuff, nobody's going to make much of anything through the fall until the election, which is only like 6 weeks away now. So coming fast. Redistricting, we already talked about that. So there's a lot of activity on redistricting, and the minimum wage. Scott actually drafted that legislation. So I was interested to ask him a bunch of that in terms of minimum wage. He said I was actually tasked by the Commission on Aging in Alexandria to hunt down George and give him a hard time for his voting record on that. And so here is what minimum wage is doing. And I'll just tell you what we know from the economist side. In home care, when minimum wage goes up, then generally you have to pass it on to the consumer. And so I don't know about you guys on the minimum wage. I'm looking at your faces. I know Dina, we're involved, and Bella, we're involved, and Natalie, we're involved in all getting workers to come to us, and the wages are going up. And so, in fact, the wages are going up by 4.9%. They went up by 4.9% in August alone. That was the highest they run a 2-year running average. And so that's the strongest wage growth since 1983. So wages are not going down. And so what's going to happen is that the prices for home care, at least that's my sector of which I am familiar, the prices for home care are going up. And you have to pass that price on to the consumer. So Scott said, here's what the budget guy said in the state is that when minimum wage goes up, then this is, again, he said, I drafted the legislation. I just turned it over to the budget guys. This is what they told me. So the budget guys, whoever they are in the state, said minimum wage goes up, minimum wage workers go spend that money. When they spend it, they get taxed on functionally a VAT tax, but the sales tax locally, and they get state taxes on their increased revenue, and then it goes back to the state. And he said, the budget guys say there's not a tremendous difference once minimum wage goes up. I said there's a tremendous difference on the consumer because the prices are going up on the consumer side. And he said, well, it is what it is. So I don't know about you guys. And I know in terms of prices in home care, we have to be careful because you don't want to be colluding. But since we have offices in Colorado, and you guys, I'm guessing, probably don't have offices in Colorado, the wages, our average wage in Colorado is about hovers around $14.82, and that carries for companions all the way up through CNAs, et cetera. And Walmart is paying $18.50 plus benefits to stand behind a register. And in a small mountain town with very small population and high unemployment, Walmart is there with $18.50 an hour plus benefits. And so all the home care companies in Colorado are now looking at a $17 to $21 starting wage in Colorado, which means that all the existing caregivers that are at 14 and change companions and low skilled companions, et cetera, are coming back to us saying, hey, where's my $17 an hour? And so that is passing right on to the consumer. So right now, the average home care price in Colorado, not average, but best I can tell in some research, is hovering around $35 an hour to start. And it's way higher than where we are in this local, in Northern Virginia. So there's
it's a tremendous, that's a real world example. I appreciate it. I wanted to I'm sorry to interrupt because I know this is good, but I want to check in with people because we're getting towards the top of the hour. And I know, maybe just by a show of hands, are you okay? Jim, what do you estimate kind of your?
Only thing I would have is just talk about the religious mandate in Colorado, but I'm basically done. So I've just dumped all that information in your head. I'm ready actually for questions.
Just unbelievable. Appreciate so much the depth of your research and the conversations you've been able to have. It was a little depressing and gloom and doom in the beginning, and then a little more hopeful on the Virginia side. I know the impacts on the minimum wage for everybody. We could debate a whole hour about that. Mm-hmm. The whole unemployment issue and, school age kids and the impact of parents having to go to work and what is happening to kids. But wow, I wondered if anybody had any targeted or any kind of question. Of course, Jim's contact information is here in the chat. With the exception of Paul Dean, I think I have everybody's contact information because you're getting my emails. I'd be happy to send any follow-up with people. Lauren's got to go. Thank you. So let me stop and just look at people. Are you guys good? Jim, thank you so much. I have two quick questions to ask the group, and maybe you can give me a hands up to vote or just a physical hand or hand up. Do we want to have an October program in person? Let me just see from the group. What's your vote here? If you yes, please put your hand up. Yes, in person. We may be able, I don't want to promise Mandy, but Mandy at Paul Spring has offered we could do it at their facility, but our community, but I won't. So it looks like we've got maybe just a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Would we be masked and or outside? Because I just have young grandkids and they're not vaccinated. So I am very careful. I'm not scared if people are masked, and I'm not scared if I'm outside, but I just wanted to see what you were thinking. If we're all going to be in a conference room, I would only be comfortable going if we were all masked. Otherwise, I just prefer Zoom.
Got it. We may be able to hybrid the event. I saw how Holly did it at the last chamber breakfast. Even if like with Lisa, if we say, please make sure you're vaccinated to meet in person, otherwise do it on Zoom. I don't know, we're just, so let me think about that. And then I would really love to get your input on, got October, November, maybe we won't do just a December program, but I'm really hungry for topic areas. This has been tremendous, Jim. Please reach out to me separately and talk to me about what you might be interested in. I was thinking about doing a Dementia Friends presentation because that is something we can bring and offer in the community. That's what I may ask Diane about if you guys don't have anything that you're really like, I want to talk about this. Other than that, I wanted to let everybody go and just, again, thank you so much to Jim for bringing all this and the research. It was a great presentation. I think we got to get ready for some of the stuff that's happening. So again, thank you. And we'll look for everybody next month. We'll go back to the second Tuesday at noon, and I'll update you all about topic areas. And again, please, I'd love to hear from you, director@mountvernonathome.org. Just reach out. So Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Thank you so much again, Jim, and everyone for showing up. Very grateful. Let's keep going. It's a great group.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye,
Thank
Holly.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Jim, seeing you always uplifts me.
Oh,
Thank
come
you.
on.
Yeah, great presentation, and thank you for the
I
research.
know, Jim.
time you
Thank you
put into
so
it.
much.
Well, thanks
Yeah.
for your patience because there were so many numbers in there. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, you did a great job. You had to cover a lot in a very little amount of time, and it stayed very relevant for us and real world examples. So I think it was helpful on every front.
Mm, mm.
Most
Appreciate
definitely.
it so much. And I'm glad it, it looks like it had some outputs for you that you needed to know.
Yeah, the EEOC thing in the medical files, I'm like, oops, didn't know about that one. So
Yeah, really? So anyway, thanks all. Talk to you soon. Betty, great to see you. Daniel, thanks. Dina, everyone.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Bye, Gina.
Take
Bye,
care
Holly.
now.